Act like a man. A quote that can be heard often from the conversation among typical men. A quote that promotes ridiculous expectation to all the boys that I know. I myself experienced and heard this harsh expectation given by the quote. Violence, cruelty, and brutality are the things that are all expected from the male gender all around the world. Even in the past centuries, it is always expected for a man to be strong, emotionless, harsh, and prideful. With all of the debates that we know from the history, what does it really mean to be a man? Toxic masculinity is an unhealthy cultural pressure that is given for men to behave in a certain way, specifically masculine. It affects how men should act, dress, speak, and express themselves among the society. It is a notion to the idea of the majority of what manliness is. This norm perpetrates domination, homophobia, and aggression. We all have experienced toxic masculinity even in our own home without knowing it. Do you still remember the times when your dad asked you to stop crying because, according to him, boys do not cry? Or even the times when he said to you that blue is for boys and pink is for girls? Or the time that he said to you that don't be such a weak because it is for girls only? Haven't you all noticed this while growing up? All their dictations that they refer as lessons because for them, this is how a proper man acts. Toxic masculinity is a culture pressure that is hard to change. That is due to the continuous practice of this cultural activity. In order to change this kind of norms, there are 3 E's that we must do. Establish, educate, and encourage. The first thing that we should do is establish. We should do this and accept our own identity as our own definition of man. As Nelson Mandela said, live a life though nobody was watching and express yourself as though everyone is listening. In order to influence others and inspire them with your words, you must first be sure of your own identity. You cannot educate others if you don't know or don't have the knowledge yourself to teach. Express who you are regardless of the norms that we have. It may be scary and frustrating at first, but it will be worth it once you fully create your own definition of yourself. Second is to educate. We now have to teach people about the consequences of toxic masculinity in our culture after we have formed the definition of ourselves. Toxic masculinity culture influences an individual physical and behavioral state. According to the research of Miss Wisdom Powell, a PhD certified medical psychologist from the University of North Carolina. Acts such as suppressing thoughts and being narcissistic affects a man's psychological capacity. External influence like alcohol, cigarettes, and drugs, which men accustomed to intake due to their inability to express themselves, often leads to many physical and psychiatric problems. Look at an example of Harry Styles and Colin Gray. The image of a true man in their own definition. They are not afraid to show what they are like wearing feminine clothes or being feminine at all, despite of the criticism that they take. And as you can see, they are living their happy lives. Many people are scared of showing themselves and hiding who they are just to please this society by being bound to these toxic ideals. Let us teach them the wonders of being free from this planet, the freedom of being yourself. Let us encourage them to accept themselves by helping and supporting them in any way that we can. Let us help them be brave enough to face this cruel world. And let us protest and fight this toxic culture that this toxic masculinity brings us. Lastly, promoting the new culture and ending toxic masculinity is our main goal. We need to encourage others to speak more about this topic. It is crucial to end this kind of norm that shackles many men to be themselves. Let us promote acceptance instead of hatred. We need to spread awareness about the status of our society and influence those who promote toxic masculinity for them to have a change of hearts. All voices must be heard. And for this to come true, it will maybe take some time to change, but our continuous action and support will surely bear a fruit in the near future. We need to stay together and to stay strong against this enemy. Let us be the stepping stone for this wonderful future with acceptance from one another. We all know the effects of toxic masculinity in an individual and in the society. The depressing and harsh effect of toxic masculinity to everyone. We need to end these suffocating norms in order for others or for our brothers to freely express themselves. We should always remember that 3 A's to defeat toxic masculinity. Establishing yourself as your own definition of man, educating others about toxic masculinity, and encouraging others to fight toxic masculinity. These are the steps that we need to take in order to fully win the war against this toxic norm. I will end this speech with a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson, an American poet from 1800s. Being faithful to be yourself in a world that constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment of all time. Do remember that you will only be truly happy once you know that you are really yourself. And being a man is being yourself. Thank you, and may we win this battle against toxic masculinity in the future. Adios.